Alpha
Omega.
We want to talk to you a little bit more about the ritual that we've been doing in the morning, the opening of the Treasury of Light. We've already talked about the Bruce Codex.
Yes, at length.
You know, and we've talked a little bit about the ritual, that it comes from the Bruce Codex, found in 1769 in Egypt, that was recovered, and it purports to contain the secret magic that Jesus of Nazareth taught to his disciples. Now, Leslie and I have been working with this magic. Well, we've been doing a magical retirement with it now for 2 years.
Yes.
And every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. We've been broadcasting it now for quite some time as well. So we've learned quite a few things, actually.
Yes, it's interesting. You know, many times in the morning, during the, well, for me, it's an inspiration. As we're going around the circle and we're calling out the divine names, I'm looking usually at the sun the whole time we do this, because I keep it in the viewfinder as I'm doing the filming. And it's like knowledge comes to me through what I'm doing.
Right.
So that when that portion comes, it's effortless.
Right. It's just like knowledge flows, because
Yes.
it's part of the God Force energy.
Yes.
The light actually transmits knowledge.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's a very interesting sensation when that happens. It's warm and fuzzy, and, you know, it really reminds me a lot of how I used to feel when I first started doing witchcraft.
Right.
You know, I attended my first public witchcraft ritual in 1991. It was Halloween of October 1991. And I had been a solitary practitioner to that point. And I was invited by they didn't call themselves a coven, but I later came to find out that they actually were.
Oh.
It was a women's studies group.
Oh, I see.
Yes, a women's studies group at West Virginia University, and they were studying various pieces of feminist literature and propaganda.
And witchcraft.
And witchcraft was right in there with the mix, because it was seen to be very empowering. And in fact, it was, for me, being surrounded by these, in the process of being college-educated women, and learning to move energy in a way different than I had as a solitary practitioner.
Right.
It very much awakened a lot of new sensations, and I felt a lot of the same inspirations happening too. It's just that the energies feel different. You know,
Right.
that's lunar energy, and lunar energy has a particularly cool and liquid quality to it, whereas I find sunlight to be more, you know, warm and prickly.
Right. Right. So, you know, we're really working with the Bruce Codex, and we're working with all the sacraments. And it's really been a bit perplexing to us, because how do you explain this to others?
Right.
I mean, what people don't understand what pigeonhole to put us in.
Right, because, I mean, look at me. I'm a witch queen, and
Right.
I'm doing the magic of Jesus of Nazareth.
I know.
That seems to be very,
Contradictory.
and yet it is not.
It is not.
the-
Neither from neither from a pagan perspective, nor from the perspective of the Bruce Codex and those early Christians who practiced it.
Right.
They had absolutely no problem with the pagans of the time becoming a part of their practice.
That's right. And
In fact, they recruited from them in Egypt.
this is what I find so fascinating about it, is that it's the magic. And if it wasn't for the magic, I wouldn't be interested. I am interested in studying magic. And if there's nothing but Jesus parables and stories of him with little lambs at his feet and children on his knee, I would be completely uninterested.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Christianity itself. I was raised Christian, and I love Christianity, but I have a real problem with the fact that they reject the magic of Jesus. That, for me, is a huge problem, because Jesus was the greatest magician who ever lived, And mainstream Christianity, having grown out of Roman Catholicism, came from the school that magic is evil, taking a couple of passages from Isaiah out of context.
Right.
So, yes, magic was demonized at about the 3rd century, about the same time that Constantine became the emperor and Christianity became the official imperial religion.
Yes.
So, basically, magic was cast out of Christianity. The magic of Jesus became the prodigal son of his own religion. And the secret teachings of Jesus, for all practices and purposes, were lost.
Yes.
His secret teachings to his disciples. Now, there are many Christians who say, it says here that everything is included here in the Bible. Well, which Bible?
Right.
You see, the Council of Nicaea decided to exclude a whole bunch of books. They're no longer part of the canonical Bible. And at about the same time, they prohibited the magic of Jesus. If it weren't for some of the early Christians in Egypt who spoke Coptic, who, when the bishops came from Rome and were trying to destroy all of the books, sacred books and remnants of the magical practices of the different Christian groups there in Egypt, they hid them from the Roman bishops. They buried them in the sand. And that's why we have them today. Thank God.
Yes, literally.
Literally, because if they hadn't done that, we would not have any trace that the magic of Jesus ever existed. Imagine.
The most powerful magic on earth for exorcising demons, and it would be lost to us.
The most incredible healing magic, and it would be lost to us. The baptisms, the most incredible awakening initiatic rituals you can imagine. I mean, John the Baptist said it himself. I baptize you with water, but one greater than me will come after me, and he will baptize you with fire and with the Holy Spirit. We have these baptism, folks. They've been back since 1769. It's just that it's not known. That's why Leslie and I are doing everything we can to make sure that you understand what's going on, what's back, what's really happening here, because it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's every bit as big a deal as when the ancient pagan practices were brought back and revivified. You see,
Indeed.
Wicca is an impulse that it takes a lot of anthropological data and tries to crunch it into one place. Now, when I say that, what I mean is that witchcraft, as I have come to understand it, is the Western European shamanic system.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Now, Western Europe had its own system of shamanism, just like the Siberians, just like the South Americans, just like the Africans, just like the Asians. We had our own gig, right? And when Christianity came through, it obliterated most of that. This is the problem I've always had with Christianity. Not only did it seek to destroy magic within itself, it sought to destroy magic everywhere.
Wow.
And as an avid practitioner of magic, I found it very, very, very difficult at first.
Indeed, practices that had always been legal in the empire were suddenly prohibited after the reign of Constantine, after Julian, basically.
Yes. Julian had attempted to revivify the ancient pagan ways.
He was immediately after he tried to return
Yes.
to the pagan ways.
Right. There have been numerous Julians, but the one that specifically I'm talking about came after them.
Right, just after.
Okay. And he tried to revivify things, but it had already gone too far. They had already had a successful campaign explaining to people that witchcraft and paganism were of the devil. And this is how you fell into the
So,
disrepute.
along with this monolithic Christianity that came out of Rome and comes right down to the Vatican of Rome today, we see that it was a very, very particular flavor and brand of Christianity that has colored Christianity in all of its aspects today,
Yes.
in all of its different denominations and flavors. There's some differences, but I mean, and so how do we reconcile that with these very, very early teachings of the magic of Jesus that have been rejected for 2 millennia? Are we going to pour this new wine into those old wineskins?
No,
This
those
is what-
wineskins are smelly and old.
This is what Jesus said.
moldy.
You pour new wine into old wineskins. What we're doing is equally open to pagans as it is to Christians. The magic of Jesus is not the exclusive property of anyone. It is our heritage here in the West. And all the Christians who are ready to embrace it, welcome. All of the pagans who are ready to embrace it, welcome. It's here. It's technology. It's spiritual technology. We're bringing it out for you in a non-sectarian manner. I mean, come on. I'm married to a witch queen. You know, it's like, how can we make the message clearer? I don't see how we possibly could. But it's time to quit disparaging each other and start looking at what's going on. I mean, and if I have anything to reproach Christianity about, it's the rejection of the magic of Jesus of so many people. It's unbelievable. Okay, there are some things to reproach. I do reproach definitely what's going on in the Vatican with that communist pope today and all of these pedophile priests. That is Satanism that has invaded Christianity. And it's not just there. I mean, look at some of these televangelists. My goodness. I mean, some of these guys, I'm not mentioning any names, but there are guys that you can see the demon shining through their eyes.
Yes, you can.
So it's not Christians, though. These are people that are exploiting Christians and manipulating you. That's not what we want to do. We want to empower you. We want to share with you the ancient magical tradition of Jesus Christ. And that's open to everyone. Jesus didn't preach just to Christians.
No, he didn't.
And his message wasn't just for the Jews either.
No, it wasn't. He preached openly to everyone and said only that if you believed, it was sufficient. It did not matter where you came from. It didn't matter who your parents were. What only mattered was your capacity to understand and to believe.
Exactly. And when it comes to these things, what matters is the tech. We're presenting this tech in a totally non-denominational manner, and yet it still needs a container. So that's why Leslie and I have been talking about this. We've been talking about it actually for months, trying to say, okay, how can we present to people that they will understand? Because it is Christian.
Yes.
But it's not at all what people understand as Christian today.
And this is why we bring up neo-paganism, because the paganism practiced today is absolutely not the paganism of our ancestors.
Indeed.
It is new. It is based on the old, but it is a new formulation of
Right.
the ancient knowledge. And that's why we call ourselves neo-pagans. This idea caught on, and we went into neo-shamanism. And in fact, I think this impetus really comes from anthropology.
Right.
Because in the 70s, as we were coming out of the functionalist school of anthropology, where you study things and the reason why Hindus don't eat cows is because you get more value from a cow if you don't eat it. And so in a poor nation, that makes sense. You create a mythology around it to enforce it to the children.
Right.
So this is how functional anthropology solves questions. Now, there was an impetus to look at new anthropology, and new anthropology was specifically not functional. It looked at things in more sociological and psychological terms.
Interesting.
Building upon the work of Ruth Benedict, yes, when she said that culture is history, culture is personality writ large, and that the personality of the people reflects itself in the personality of the culture, and that is how you approach culture and looking how to understand cultures.
Interesting. Very
Yes, and so
interesting.
and since anthropologists are the ones who are talking about, well, these are pagans and these are neo-pagans, and anthropologists are very much interested in putting people in categories.
Right.
So, thus the new moniker.
So, yeah. And so what's really interesting and what fascinated me and that we've talked about so many times is how it is that neo-pagans have taken different ancient pagan cults and religious practices and they have faithfully as possible, reconstructed
Yes.
and then revivified them,
Yes.
revitalized them, and brought them back to life.
Yes. In fact, there are ancient Greek and Roman temples that now have fires burning in them for the first time in thousands of years due to the work of dedicated historical and religious reconstructionists working on the old faiths.
So this gives us a great working model, because what Leslie and I are doing is now something very similar. We're doing Christian reconstructionism. We're reconstructing the ancient magical rites that were practiced by early Christians attributed to Jesus.
Yes.
So this is our job: reconstruction and revival of these ancient rites.
Yes.
So therefore, you want to say it or shall I say it?
Can we say it together?
We can say it together. Therefore, we have finally coined a term for what it is that we're teaching with the lost magic of Jesus. Although it's the original and the most ancient, it is also Neo-Christianity.
And this is because it satisfies the same requirements
Right.
as Neo-Shamanism and Neo-Paganism.
Right. And so now we have also Neo-Christianity, which is working specifically with the ancient rites and practices attributed to Jesus through his disciples and the followers of his disciples, specifically in Egypt.
Yes. And that is because those are the records that we have to work with.
Right. Now, I think that Leslie and I, sometimes we get a little bit, upset with one another. And of course,
Well,
and
but
I have
good.
a thin skin when pagans start complaining about Christians. I say, hey, I'm Christian here.
Well, and as a pagan, I've had my fair share of problems living in places like Nebraska and Kansas, as
I
one
can
can
imagine.
imagine.
Right.
So, but this is good. This is a creative friction between the two of us. Because, to be honest, if there was no such thing as friction, one could not even walk.
Right.
Because it requires the friction of your foot against the ground in order to
Right.
have an approach to
And then
move.
when I think about it, there are plenty of things that I complain about Christianity today. The
Right.
form is taken today.
Yes.
Because let's face it, the churches have lost their way. At least a
Yes.
lot of them have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of these mega churches are nothing more than glorified swinger events.
Yes.
And then you look at these televangelists and some of these guys, man, they're demons. It's pure Satanism.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable what's going on. And then the church just doesn't want you to have anything to do with the magic of Jesus. They say magic is evil. That is the most absurd thing I have ever heard.
It's as absurd as having women barred from the priesthood.
Right. And then you have the problem with all the pedophile priests and all of that in Catholicism. I mean, it's about time, folks, especially here in America. Christians are waiting for the rapture. What is this rapture? What does it look like? Okay, well, they say that, that the dead in Christ will rise and we'll meet him in the air. Well, is that going to be like a Hollywood movie, or how's that work? How is it that you imagine that works? Let me clue you in. The magic of Jesus is the magic of resurrection. It's the magic of eternal life. It is the magic of how to ascend at death from here, transfigured in a body of light, into the kingdom of heaven, which is the kingdom of light. And what the secrets of teachings of Jesus contain are precisely the techniques to use to achieve that transformation. The spiritual practices taught by Jesus to his disciples. This is Neo-Christianity.
And this book, these materials that we're working with, are absolutely as illuminating and mind-blowing as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It has, to me, after having read the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, now reading the Bruce Codex, I see so many of these magical parallels. And yet, in the Bruce Codex, what I see is a streamlined system, something that has been refined and honed, that is like, it's the difference between a system that is, it has the cleanliness and precision of science, whereas these other traditions, they seem very weighted down by their decorations, by their
Right.
cultural accoutrements. that do nothing more than provide cultural window dressing to make whatever's going to happen next a little bit more palatable.
Right.
That's absolutely stripped from the magic of Jesus. It's almost as if he was saying, if you can't handle the magic, then you can't handle me. I'm not going to give you any of the cultural trappings. I've been to this place, that place.
Well,
the other
it's very much like a magical grimoire.
Yes.
You know, in the grimoires themselves, you rarely find instructions on how to operate the magical system.
No, they assume
They
you
just
know
have the
how.
hierarchies.
Right. They assume that if you're holding that grimoire, you know what to do with it.
Exactly. The magic of Jesus. I always called it esoteric Christianity until I met Leslie and we were talking about these things. It makes a lot more sense, neo-Christianity, because we're reviving an ancient form of Christianity. We are carefully reconstructing it and reviving it. And it's amazing that we even have these rites. I mean, rapture is a real deal in these rituals.
Yes.
They don't call it that, but that's what it is. It's how to rise in the air, I mean, through the planes instead of just the air. But it's what people expect, just it comes in a different way.
Yes.
And then you have the baptisms. The baptisms are the most exquisite rituals.
They are amazing. They are elegant in their simplicity, and yet I find them incredibly shamanic because of all the different plants involved. There's
Right.
so many different plants involved in these baptisms. It's just it's like being baptized in nature itself, but sweetened and condensed.
So our job is to put this tech out there. We are every single day broadcasting the opening of the Treasury of Light to you. And we will be putting out the other rites and rituals from the Bruce Codex in due time. We're working on that. And we'll get this all out to you. And that's why we wanted to do this special session today, because we're actually this time not in front of live webinar. Some people stayed afterward, but we wanted to be...
Live studio audience.
We still have a live studio audience. We wanted to be free of the encumberment of having to present a certain message in the class that we were in. So we decided to just invite the students that were there to come back afterward.
Yes.
And we could talk about these things because we've been wanting to talk about them, and we have been talking about them a little bit during the morning rituals. But during the morning rituals, we're never on camera.
Right.
So we wanted to be able to tell you about these things a little bit on camera, and especially
Yes.
about the news that we've coined this term of neo-Christianity, because it does really describe it pretty well.
Yes, and I really don't think that, as I think about how neo-shamans and shamans interact when they find each other at the same anthropological conference, I'm sure that the interaction will be roughly similar between Christians and neo-Christians.
We shall see, but certainly the magic of Jesus is carving out its place in the Christian scene.
Yes, it is.
One way or another, because we're putting it out there. People can take it or leave it, accept it or reject it. If the Christians want to reject their heritage, I'm sure that there are plenty of pagans who'll be happy to scoop it up.
I love magic of all kinds, and I am discerning in that I like high quality, effective magic. And I have been working with this system, and I can assure you that as far as working with demons, exorcising demons, healing magic, and magic of, I would say, just overall happiness and a feeling of being uplifted. It's so, it's so much different from the witchcraft tradition, where the witchcraft tradition makes you feel very solid and very anchored here, in the here. When you travel into the distance, you're aware that you're traveling into the distance and that you're moving through dimensions. But you're rooted here on Earth. The Bruce Codex and the work that I'm doing with the magic of Jesus of Nazareth, this is, it has an elevating quality to it that does not dissipate when the ritual is over. Just like the earthy feeling from the pagan rituals never dissipated. But this is of a higher, more refined quality. And when you're just interested in day-to-day life and spiritual elevation is not anything that's important to you, and you are comfortable in the idea that upon death you become compost and everything is recycled. I mean, if you're comfortable with that, then witchcraft is a great place for you to be. Summerland is the closest thing that witches have to a heaven. And it's something that is pretty much just like life here, except you never get dirty and you never get tired and you never get hungry. But this magic is different. This magic is elevating to a different dimension, keeping a lot of the feeling and of happiness and contentment that is found in those loftier realms, but bringing that back down into earth. And
it's because of the God force contact,
Yes.
the God force energy. You know, and that's what's really interesting because, you know, once you discover the God force and understand what it is, you realize that what Jesus was talking about when he was talking about abundant life was the God force. When he talked about rivers of life, he was talking about the God force.
Yes.
When he talked about Holy Spirit, he was talking about the God force.
Yes.
It's this incredible vital life energy that's everywhere, all around it, and all you have to do is tap into it, and our culture could give two whits about it.
right. It's really quite sad.
It's really quite sad. And it's very important that this knowledge come out again, and that's what we're here for, and that's what we're doing, and that's the work of the Alpha Omega. I want to mention one more thing about this rapture business. You know, there's another thing that theologians here in America have been debating about, because there are some that say that the rapture is going to happen before the tribulation, and others say that no, Jesus is coming again after the tribulation. He can't come before the tribulation because he's coming after. How do you do both before and after? Well, there's a simple answer to that. It's the first time, it's not the man who comes. Now, here we are, just before the tribulation, by the way. We're right here with the Antichrist 666 social justice credit score system
Right.
ruling everything in China already and getting ready to be imposed worldwide by big tech. So this is just around the corner. And right on time, what shows up? Not Jesus himself, just his magic. This is, folks, in fact, the second coming of the magic of Jesus. That's how big a deal this is.
Yes.
And so we're going to put it out there. It's there for all who want it. Prophecy says only 144,000 will embrace it. We shall see if that's the truth, if that happens as well. You know, we talk about the secret teachings of Jesus to his disciples. There's an important difference in neo-Christianity to Christianity about this point, because Christianity says that all of the disciples were men. Neo-Christianity does not say that at all.
No.
You want to tell them, Leslie, or shall I? In the Bruce Codex, you have actually, if not the primary, one, in many instances
she's
the
the
primary.
primary.
In many instances, the primary disciple of Jesus was none other than guess who?
Mary Magdalene.
Of course.
She was his favorite. Of course she was his favorite.
Right. She was his closest disciple. So don't think that the magic of Jesus is only for men. Don't think that the secret teachings of Jesus to his disciples are only for men. No, women were there with men on an equal basis, in fact, elevated because he loved her so much.
Yes.
She was the most beloved of the master.
Yes, and she received the majority of the teachings, and the deepest of the teachings, and the most thorough education.
So yeah, it's very important, I think, for the women out there to hear this and understand this. And that's why your role in this is also extremely important. I mean, from the very beginning, from the very, very beginning of bringing this magic back to life, it has not been me alone, a man, but it has been a man and a woman
Working together
as Alpha and Omega.
doing a lot of research, comparing a lot of notes, having a lot of conversations about what it is that I'm finding as I'm researching, what it is we experience as we experiment, what he's finding in his research. It's really been a journey for me, because Jesus was always a very problematic figure for me when I was growing up. I was not raised with the teddy bear Jesus that everybody else seems to talk about. The Jesus that I was exposed to was exactly like my relatives. He was demanding, made unreasonable requests, seemed to enjoy putting me in difficult situations, and basically just told me to sit down, be quiet, and don't get anything dirty.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, when I first started reading the Bruce Codex materials, I would start reading and I'd get so excited and so interested in stuff, and this is how the magic works, and now we're moving through this treasury and that works great. And then all of a sudden I'd see Jesus, and it was like somebody popped my balloon. I could just feel my energy go, and I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. Why such a reaction? Why this horrible baggage from my childhood?
There are a lot of Christians that or ex-Christians that feel that way. The churches have really emptied out, folks. I mean, things have been changing over the last 20 years, and there's a reason for that. Well, maybe that will change now. That's why the time has come for a renewal of Christianity, a true revival of the faith. And it's not just rehashing the same old thing over and over again. No, it's reformulating everything as neo-Christianity in a set of new wineskins, and pouring into these new wineskins this ancient wine directly from Jesus through his disciples.
Yes, and this becomes inspiring to me again, because this was, people...
Because it is inspiring.
Well, and people have a nose for lies.
Right.
You just have a sense when you're being lied to.
Exactly.
And the honest truth was, I felt like I was being lied to when I was in church, and I felt like everything that they were saying about Jesus was lies. And when I started reading about the magic of Jesus, that's when I realized, hey, now this isn't a lie. This is real. This syncs up with what I've thought this guy was all about all along, which was not about being a prim and proper rabbi. It wasn't about being a perfect Egyptian priest with a shaved head or traveling around as a wandering monk. It was about teaching people to live their life better. And that's the heart of what magic is for. Now, I was really upset when I heard the Pope say that prayer isn't a magic wand. That's a lie. And I know a lie when I hear it.
Exactly. That prayer is not a magic wand. Look,
it is.
Prayer is the most, for Christians, you have the most powerful tool of magic at your disposal. It is incredible how powerful prayer is, especially if you have faith in God. Prayer can make miracles, and this is the key. Prayer is faith-based magic.
Yes.
If you don't believe, it won't work. That's why there were places where Jesus couldn't heal anyone.
Right, because they didn't believe.
They didn't believe, and he left the town.
Okay.
It's there in the Bible, even in the canonical Bible.
Yes.
You don't have to look in the lost books in order to find that teaching.
Now, this impetus to revive the true meaning and message of Jesus, this is something that has been in my family for a long time. In fact, my great-grandmother, Lacey Musick, was a tent revival preacher in McDowell County, West Virginia.
Mama.
In the mid to late 50s and early 60s. And she was doing essentially the same type of work that Oral Roberts was doing. She would gather people together in a large tent. They would pray together. She had a bluegrass band that would play some music. And she would lay hands and heal. And she was well known throughout the tri-state area as being a very gifted healer, just by the laying on of hands. And even when I was, I guess I couldn't have been more than 9 or 10, I remember going to hospital rooms with my mama, and she would come up and she would kneel down and hold the person's hand and put her third eye on their hand. And she would sit in that motion position for a half an hour. And I'm talking about an 85-year-old little broken woman, who's been a farmer all her life and a miner's wife. And then you'd see the tears start to flow, and she'd take the tears and she'd wipe them on her hand. She said, "You've been blessed with the waters of the Lord, honey. You're going to be just fine." And 9 out of 10 people that she worked on healed.
It's the power of faith.
It is. And that power to revive what he was doing.
But faith also requires a structure. And that's why it's so nice to retrieve and recover the ancient magic rites used by the master himself.
Yes.
because it's the most perfect and pristine structure. Unfortunately, we don't have everything. Some of it was lost. And that's really a huge loss for humanity. It's too bad we don't have another manuscript. I know they do in the Vatican, but there's no way they will ever let that out. They're the ones who tried to destroy it to begin with.
Right. They only kept it for themselves.
They just wanted it for themselves. Right. They wanted to have all the magic for themselves. That's the whole reason. An imperial priesthood wanting to lord it over everyone else.
Hoarding magic like gold.
And that's Satanism. Hoarding magic and trying to use it for one's own personal interest while keeping others in the dark is how we got into the mess that we're in today.
Yes, that's right.
It's incredible. I mean, and I'm not talking just about religion, but also in politics. It's incredible the situation that we're in. We're ruled by idiots.
Absolutely.
Worse than idiots, evil demon-possessed people, demonic-possessed people. And here we are in a situation now where we're invaded by demons into our dimension.
Yes.
And, ruled by people already ruled by them. I mean, come on. What kind of a chance do we have? That's why Leslie and I are out there with the Magick doing our best to defend humanity.
And as a pagan, I can tell you, in all my pagan study, I never found exorcism of demons to be easy. Not until this magic. Right. This magic is superior. The only thing that comes anywhere close is Tibetan Buddhism. And for that, you have to have a purba, a special dagger.
Right.
With the magic of Jesus, even a dagger is not necessary.
That's right. One more thing. Certain Christians out there, I know, you're going to church and they're telling you that you're going to get raptured out of here. I got news for you. It doesn't work like that. Yes, the rapture is here. But no, you're not going to get out of here just like that. So we either defeat the New World Order and establish human freedom worldwide, or we're going to be enslaved.
Yes.
It's just that simple. And there is no lifeboat that you're going to get to miss out on it, and that doesn't mean you don't have to take responsibility for your life and to stand with us and to fight for our human race. It's time that we stand up for humanity.
It's not that hard. It's important if you want to continue breathing and eating and living, because the people who are coming after us, rest assured, they despise us. They hate us like you cannot imagine. Think of the disgust and revulsion you feel when you see a roach in your kitchen, huh? Now, do you understand how they feel about you? They squirt things on us from above. They poison our food. They poison our minds. They hypnotize us and tell us lies.
Poison our water. It's incredible what is going on. And the more that we discover, the more horrible the truth is. But we can still fix it. There's still time. But not a lot. We have to do it now. We have to act now. And that's why it's so important that people, Christians, especially Christians as far as I'm concerned, are empowered with the magic of Jesus, because this is particularly your patrimony. As a Christian, this is your inheritance. Don't let anybody take it from you. Don't let anybody keep it from you. Don't let anybody in any church lie to you and tell you that the magic of Jesus is evil, because it's not.
They are evil for having told you as much.
Right. There are churches that are led by Satanists now. They've infiltrated all over the place.
I've even attended church that was led by an atheist.
So that's basically what we wanted to tell you. And we've actually come up with a name for it. Esoteric Christianity is what I called it for a long time, but it doesn't fit so well. What we're teaching is Neo-Christianity, the magic of Jesus. The lost magic of Jesus is back. This is the second coming of the magic of Jesus.
And Neo-Christianity, just like Neo-Paganism and Neo-Shamanism before it, should be an easy title for anyone who is interested in magic to take upon themselves.
Right. It doesn't come with a lot of Christian baggage. It doesn't, because not everything about Christianity has been good or is good today, as we all know.
And you don't have to wear a pointy hat like in paganism, and you don't need a drum like in shamanism. All you need is your faith and your belief that Jesus was, in fact, the greatest magician ever to have lived.
And then the rest, you experience it yourself with the power of the system. So for now, Well, we're working on getting this out there, and we're working hard at it. Keep coming to our rituals in the morning. We invite you every day to visit our ritual, or whenever you feel like dropping by. Ritual right now is around 7 a.m., just before 7 a.m. Pacific time.
6:54.
6:54 it was this morning. And then we rebroadcast throughout the day, every hour on the hour of the even hours. That would be 10, 12, 2, 4, etc. And you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on alphaomega.church. You can find us on golden-dawn.com. We are broadcasting in all of those places.
One last thing before we go is I wanted to thank you
Oh,
because I've studied a lot of manuscripts, but I was unaware of the existence of the Bruce Codex.
it was a well-guarded secret in esoteric circles for a long time, and academic circles, because they had no idea what they had their hands on.
Oh, and once I saw it, I was 110% on board, and I really am tremendously grateful for the opportunity to work on this reconstruction project.
It's incredibly important.
It's
I'm so
fantastic.
grateful that you're here helping. I mean, imagine, I have an archaeologist and an anthropologist to help me with this mission of reformulating Christianity into neo-Christianity by bringing back the lost magic of Jesus. I mean, I couldn't be more lucky in that sense.
And it's amazing to me because I, who have been so interested in magic my entire life, I finally have an opportunity to study the magic that my mama was studying. It's a very long story as to how my family kept the two of us separated for so many years. But now I finally get that connection with her.
Wonderful.
And
I'm
it's
so glad
amazing.
to hear it.
Thank you.
I'd like to also, before we close, I'd like to draw your attention to our website, alphaomega.church. I've been doing a lot of work over there for the last couple of days, and we're still in progress. It's going to take a couple more weeks probably, maybe a little longer. We'll see. But there's a lot of things going on over there. We even have a ministerial track for people looking for ordination
Yes.
or consecration into the episcopate. We have a whole lot of apostolic successions, and that's for people that want to go through the baptisms and all of that stuff too. But that's coming down the road. For now, we still have our free ebook that's already out there, Was Jesus Secretly a Magician? And you can find out more about us and about our church and about the work of this ministry at alphaomega.church. People have been sending us in prayer requests, and we decided to make that a little bit more organized.
Yes.
We're putting up a prayer wall on the alphaomega.church website. So, and we'll be using the prayer wall for part of our rituals in the morning. We'll be bringing in the energies of the opening of the Treasury of Light to that prayer wall as well.
Yes.
So we've also just revamped the donation page. We appreciate the folks who've been donating to us
Thank
over
you
there.
so much.
Thank you so much. It really makes things easier.
It does.
It's, Leslie and I, we really work hard, and we really only take out enough just to get by, and everything else goes back into the mission. You
Yes.
can ask Leslie about that. We really do. We grow as quick as we possibly can,
Yes.
and we are growing.
Yes, we are.
So thank you so much. We really appreciate your being here.
Yes, thank you for sticking around and being part of this, our first Alpha Omega message.
Right, this is our first Alpha Omega message for our church.
Yes.
Specifically for our church, where we're on camera.
Right, talking to you about the mysteries that we teach here at the Alpha Omega Church.
The religious mysteries that we teach here, because it is religious, but it's also not just religious, it's spiritual and magical. It's all of that.
Yes, and also to teach you about neo-Christianity and what a magical practice can be.
Right, and what a magical practice was to the early Christians living in Egypt.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, think about it. The baptism of water, as powerful as it is, John said, I'm not even worthy to untie his shoelaces. And he's coming with the baptism of fire and the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and you can have these baptisms. They're back.
Yes.
So thanks for coming out. And remember, have faith and expect a miracle.
And until we have the pleasure of each other's company again, May your magics work better than expected.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. See you soon. Yesterday we released this brand new ebook, Was Jesus a Magician? Give you the basic background of the rediscovery of the lost books of Yahweh, how it happened, why they were repressed, why it is that the magic of Jesus was nearly destroyed and wiped from the face of the earth, and the miracle by which it survived. How we only have one precious manuscript of this ancient knowledge, and that's truly all there is left. Well, maybe in the Vatican they have it, but they're not about to give us that to fill in the little gaps that we've found. So be sure to make sure you download this. You don't want to miss this. You can get it for free for now at thesecretsofjesus.com. Thesecretsofjesus.com.
Are you familiar with the Rosicrucian with what's his name? He's popular in the States. He's the president or the
Emperor.
Imperator.
the president
Emperor.
Imperator.
from the Golden Dawn. What's his name?
Oh,
David Griffin holds this position as Emperor.
Imperator.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Have David Griffin.
I saw an email yesterday that he sent out about, there's a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
Demons of the infernal realm. All of them.
There is really a magical war going on.
The Mage War.
There is a guy called David Griffin who is heading all these magicians.
David Griffin is S.L. McGregor Mather's present successor.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
I'm Golden Dawn Imperator David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Now, David Griffin.
There's a magical war going on.
So there is really a magical war going on.
Alpha
Omega.